Magic, and of course, Orlando was without the services late in the season with their star Dwight Howard, and into the playoffs. He missed the playoffs as well. So Orton did contribute to their season, to their team's success of making the playoffs. But he's one young man who I would have to say probably should have stayed in college. Injuries are part of the game, but where he was injured, you have to look at where he was injured. He was not injured playing NBA ball. He was injured playing NBA D-League ball. That's one player that you might say I'm judging him a little more harshly than Eric Bledsoe. But Bledsoe was more of a contributor to the Clippers than Orton was a contributor to the Orlando Magic. So I just look at his total 2 years in the league, I would have to say it's a failure. Just a failure in general now. Georgia Tech completing that 2010 draft. Georgia Tech, Derek Favors, power forward. He was picked number 3 overall by the New Jersey Nets. He played in over 50 games his first season in the 2010-11 season. He played over 50 games and was traded to Utah, where he still is. So far, career average 7.7 points per game. And Utah did make the playoffs this season. So you look at his stats, it's about almost like Eric Bledsoe. Nothing really stands out to you, but those 7.7 points per game was a contribution to a playoff team, such as the Utah Jazz, who were knocked out of the first round by the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, that was expected. So I would have to look at his and say he contributed to the success of a playoff team. So, I look at that as a success. Now, let's go to Kansas. Xavier Henry, shooting guard, drafted by Memphis, number 12 overall in the 2010 draft. His team did make the playoffs in 2011, or 2010, I'm sorry. They did make the playoffs, but this season's team, New Orleans, didn't. Now, he's averaged in 2 years 4.9 points per game. So I definitely look at his tenure as a failure. No ifs, ands, or buts. I look at his tenure. He was not a major contributor to the Memphis Grizzlies last year's playoff run. This season, the New Orleans Hornets had a terrible year. So that's one player who probably could have stayed put at Kansas. So look at Avery Bradley, the final player, number 7 that I'm going to go over. Point guard out of Texas, number 19th overall in the 2010 draft, drafted by the Boston Celtics. Now, he's an interesting player. 5.6, of course, once again, he's a point guard, 5.6 points per game. Now, Boston made the playoffs in his 2 seasons, and this year was his breakout year, averaging 10.6 points per game. Now, he's one that stock has risen over one season. You might look at it and say, well, he should have stayed. If you looked at his numbers from last year, you would have said yes. Maybe he should have stayed put. But when you look at his numbers this season, 10.6, his breakout year, I would say he made a great decision. He's having personal success his second year and also contributed to his team's playoff success, getting into the playoffs. So out of all the 7 picks that I've went over, when I look at Xavier Henry and look at Daniel Orton, those are 2 players that I felt should have stayed put. In particular, Daniel Orton. He's young enough to bounce back from that injury, and I just hope that there's time left, that these 2 young men bounce back, and the next couple of years will be breakout years for them. So certainly, of the 7 players that I named, 2 probably should have stayed put. The other 5 are doing pretty good in my eyes. Like I stated, some success individuals, some success maybe not with the big numbers, but the teams that contributed to the team's success. When I come back, I'll go over the 2011 one and dones of the NBA draft. So please sit back and continue to enjoy your early morning coffee with BabeThomHerman.
If you're looking for affordable health and insurance coverage, well then give Jonica Rowland of the Rowland Group a call. She's here to serve families, individuals, and small businesses. Contact her at 919-719-7211 or at 919-539-2492. Once again, contact Jonica Rowland of the Rowland Group.
I feel like busting loose, give me the bridge now.
Oh, I feel like busting loose, and I like hopefully the players that I mentioned before the break who seem to have not had success so far, and I'm talking about Kansas, Xavier Henry, and also Daniel Orton from Kentucky, who have not had successful seasons so far in the NBA. So hopefully they can listen to that song, I Feel Like Bustin' Loose, and maybe it will inspire them to just have that breakthrough and that breakthrough season, that breakout season rather. Now, the 2011 NBA one and done is drafted in the first round, and for those of you tuning in, I'm going over my show today is in reference to the success and failures of the most recent one and done NCAA men's college basketball players drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. 2011, of course, this year's NBA's Rookie of the Year, Kyrie Irving from Duke, the point guard, once again, number one overall draft pick, 18.5 points per game, 5.4 assists per game. Once again, NBA Rookie of the Year. Byron Scott, he's coached under a great NBA player, 14 seasons himself under his belt. Byron Scott, great at developing guards, in particular shooting guards and point guards. If many of you do recall that he coached Chris Paul in New Orleans. So it's ironic that he's coaching another point guard in the development years. He had Chris Paul during his early development stages. Now he has Kyrie Irving during his early developing stages. So it's very interesting. Number 3 overall, Enes Kanter from Kentucky, went to Utah, power forward, 4.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game. Team did make playoffs. You look at his, maybe the numbers, personal success, no. Contributing to team success, yes. You look at those numbers contributing to a playoff team. And so you have to say, great team success. So Tristan Thompson, number 4. Of course, with the Cavaliers as well. Kyrie Irving's teammate from Texas, power forward. And of note, highest Canadian-born draftee. He is the highest Canadian-born draftee in modern NBA history. So 13.1 per game, points per game, 7.8 rebounds per game. You go to him and Kyrie, the numbers are there. Maybe the team, you might say, well, the team didn't make the playoffs, no team success. You have to look, this is a different, and I'm putting these two in the same category, of course, because they're they're teammates. You look after Cleveland lost LeBron. Look at the rough season they had last season compared to this season. The excitement that Kyrie Irving and Tristan, the hope that he gave to that franchise that struggled last year. A lot of people was like, man, this team is just down for the count. But Kyrie Irving and Tristan in particular brought, that excitement back to that city, back to the team. So I'm looking at both of them saying success, success, success. Byron Scott is doing a heck of a job with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now let's go to Brandon Knight, point guard from Kentucky, number 8 pick overall. Picked by the Detroit Pistons. 12.8 points per game, 3.8 assists per game. Personal success, yes. Team success, no. Sucks. So, that's a player that, had good numbers and people expected that. So, once again, personal success, yes. Team success, no. Team excitement, no. Let's go to Tobias Harris, power forward, number 19 pick, Tennessee, with the Milwaukee Bucks. Many of you locally, NC State, his younger brother Tyler played for NC State this past season. We all know the Tyler transferred and will not be with the team next season. So that's his older brother Tobias from Tennessee. 5 points per game, 2.4 rebounds per game. Stats, marginal stats. Team success, none. Excitement, somewhat. A little excitement in Milwaukee. I give him that. But he's one that could have benefited from staying another year in school. But, I can't look at his numbers and say he really totally sucked. 5 points a game, 5 points per game. Yeah, nothing to catch your eye with. Team success, none. Like I stated earlier, I would have to say marginal success. Corey Joseph, the last player picked. There was 6 overall, one and dones in the first round, chosen in 2011 draft. Point guard from Texas, number 29 pick. He was warned not to enter the draft. This was a major mistake, and he was warned not to enter, but he went anyway. What did he do with the Spurs? Nothing. The Spurs sent them to the D-League, the Austin Toros. So, failure. Hopefully next year he can come back, contribute to the Spurs. The Spurs are combining young players with vets. Worked out great this year. So it just remains to be seen how it will hold out, or how he will hold out, and how he will contribute to this team. But as for now, he's a failure. Out of all the 6 players, I would say he's the one that should have definitely stayed in school at Texas. You have to look at his as a failure. He did not enter the draft to go to the NBA Development League. Daniel Orton did not enter the draft last year, 2010, to go to the NBA D-League, get injured, missed the whole season, but he did come back this season and play for 16 games with the Orlando Magic. So, like I stated, these are the players. 13 total from the 2010-2011 one and done. They were the one and dones of the NCAA men's college basketball programs that went and were chosen in the NBA's first round. Now, many were chosen in the second round, and some weren't chosen at all. So it all depends on how you judge success and how you judge failure. As you saw, or as you listened in reference to the numbers that I have given you, some players were very successful on the court, some were not. Some were successful on the courts. Teams did not make the playoffs. Teams were not successful. Some did not have numbers like a John Wall, like a DeMarcus Cousins, like a Kyrie Irving, but they contributed to a team that made it to the playoffs. No knock on Kyrie Irving, because the Cleveland Cavaliers program looked like it's on the way up. For John Wall and the Washington Wizards, it remains to be seen. Now, Kyrie does have an advantage. Out of all the numbers, he just played 1 year less than Wall. But you look at Kyrie Irving, and out of all the players I named, you would have to say he has the best numbers. But once again, no knock on John Wall. Kyrie has the advantage of playing for Byron Scott, who, like I said earlier, had 14 years under his belt as an NBA player. Tristan Thompson, stock is risen. He's going to be a star in this league. And certainly, all the rest of them, it just remains, the rest of the players, the great players I've named, DeMarcus Cousins, it just remains to be seen. Boogie had an attitude problem his rookie year, bounced back this year, had a decent season. So it just remains to be seen. Unfortunately, my time is up, and I hope you enjoyed your early morning coffee with BabeThomHerman on this beautiful Saturday morning, and continue to enjoy your day. Please tune in each and every Saturday morning on Power WAUG and on Power750.com.